Poke the Bear is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 334, part of the CLNS Media Network. If you have time, please subscribe to the Bruins Rinkside YouTube channel, where you can have pretty much daily content between Poke the Bear, Bruins Beat with Evan Marinofski, Pucks with Haggs, Bear with Me with Joey Capone. We have you covered every step of the way this Bruins offseason. So follow along with us over at YouTube. Make sure you sign up for notifications so you find out right at the very instant when a new video drops. And if you don't want to see my ugly face or anything like that, I understand. You can also subscribe and follow us over wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. My name is Conor Ryan, and once again, we are joined by the esteemed Ty Anderson of 98.5 Sports. Up, Ty. How you doing?
What is going on today? How are we doing?
Doing well. I am in Pennsylvania for a wedding. I'm in a hotel, and so if the Wi-Fi is choppy, if all of a sudden I start sounding like Zordon or IG-88 or anything like that, please, it's not me, it's the Wi-Fi, so please bear with me.
Can you become like the I don't know if he was a pilot or a driver in Rise of Skywalker, objectively terrible movie.
Yes.
I died in the theaters when they were like, take us to whatever, and the guy just opens it and goes, okay, and starts driving. Just become that guy, please. That is one of the funniest scenes in the entire latest 3-part series.
You didn't like Babu Frick?
No, I actually did like Babu Frick. Okay, that's a lie. I did, yeah. No.
Okay, Babu so we got two scenes though. We got two scenes in an hour and 40. What is it? An hour and 40? No, 2-hour movie. It's not what exactly you're looking for there. Ty, we might end up having to talk about the Rise of Skywalker and Babu Frick this entire episode, because there's really not a lot of tangible news to talk about with the Bruins in their head coaching search. A lot of rumors, you would think that based on the reports that first came out on Tuesday, I believe it was Cam Robinson from Elite Prospects was pretty much saying that Marco Sturm set to be the new head coach of the Boston Bruins. So I think we were all expecting, all right, maybe this is a Thursday at 9 a.m. news drop, maybe Friday, something like that. We're on Saturday, and it does feel like they're still in the process of talking to a few guys. Fluter Shinzawa of The Athletic mentions guys like Jay Leach is still a finalist. Mitch Love is a finalist. Where do you stand right now on the Bruins head coaching search? Are you still bracing for Marco Sturm, or do you still feel like it's still up for grabs and the Bruins are still maybe pondering who their new head coach is going to be?
Yeah, I do think that they're still going through their options. I reported last night that Joe Sacco was at the facility on Friday morning, unclear as to what reason. I do think that he is a legit candidate as well. I don't want to lose sight of that. It does feel like, Marco Sturm, Mitch Love, Jay Woodcroft, like we keep hearing about those guys, but I continue to hear about Joe Sacco, and it's been said to me multiple times that, like, no, he's a legit contender. And so it appears the Bruins are telling the truth when it comes to that. Him being at the facility on Friday kind of intrigues me because, like, why? Is he interviewing for the job? Which is kind of weird because they know a lot about him already. Is he part of the interview process for a guy like Marco Sturm, which would indicate that he's perhaps willing to go back to being an associate coach, which would be kind of weird, but if you're comfortable, you're comfortable, right? But yeah, I think they're still kind of going over their options, because I do think that they know, as we've talked about before, like, this might be their last hire. This might be the last guy that they are allowed to hire. And when that's the case, like, you got to get it right? It's similar to how they look at the 7th overall pick. Don Sweeney said to us back at the beginning of May, like, yeah, there's a lot of pressure when you pick this high, and there should be. I feel like with the coaching search, there's a lot of pressure on them, and there should be. When you fire two coaches that one wins a Stanley Cup and the other one finds a job 5 days later and brings that team back from the dead, there should be pressure on you to get this right, because if you don't, everyone's going to point and laugh at you and go, you guys are the problem, not the coach.
Right. No, exactly. And I also wonder, I don't know if this is the conspiracy theorist in me or anything like that, but do you feel like with Dallas now being out of the playoffs, do you think they revisit Misha Donskov? Do you think that's just something that we just like talking about him because he's an intriguing candidate, but there really wasn't a lot of maybe fire underneath all that smoke? I mean, hell, based on how that final game ended between the Stars and the Oilers, is like, Pete DeBoer going to be on the docket in like a few days? Like, do you think maybe not just Donskott, but do you also think the Bruins are waiting for maybe the dust to settle from what Dallas might do in terms of, all right, before we like some of these guys, we like Sturm, we like Woodcroft, we like Love, but let's wait for a minute and see what exactly is out there, and maybe if another really intriguing head coach does become available that we can snag.
Well, I mean, you can argue it's what the Blues did a year ago with the Bruins, right? Like they were kind of watching that Boston-Toronto series going, if they blow this, Montgomery's going to become available, like, so it is possible. And I think it's especially possible when you look at who the final four were. The Panthers were not going to fire Paul Maurice if they lost that series. The Oilers were not going to fire Chris Knobloch if they lost that series. However, the two teams that did lose that series, Rod Brind'Amour, it's now his third time losing in the conference finals as the head coach of the Hurricanes, and Pete DeBoer, third straight time losing in the conference finals for the Stars, the first team to do that in like 50 years. Like, there's legit case, perhaps not strong, but legit case to be made that those guys could be fired. And if they were fired, well, guess what? You are one of two teams with an opening right now. Not a bad thing. Like that, like that's where the market kind of plays your advantage in a way. So yes, I do think they're being patient, waiting for the dust to settle. When is that going to come though? Right? Like, I don't think Carolina fires Rod. I just don't think they do that. And I think there are economic reasons as well as what he's been able to get out of that team reasons for that. But, Pete DeBoer, like, what do they do there? Like what do they do? Especially those comments you sort of alluded to it there, like the biting comments on Jake Ottinger after that Game 7 loss. And, it's tough to blame a goalie, in my opinion, when you kind of no-show in terms of creating offense for, the outside of the third period of Game 1, like that's kind of how it felt, honestly. So that's a weird situation now. And as we saw with Boston, with Bruce Cassidy, there's a limit of criticizing players that, organizations will withstand before the players go to management and go, I don't want to play for this guy anymore. You got to do something there. So has that happened now, Pete DeBoer? I don't know. He's a good coach. So we're going to have to wait and see there. But those are two intriguing candidates if they are to move on.
Right. And I also, like, as you said, where you're at this point in the coaching carousel hiring frenzy where it's just you and Pittsburgh. And, it does feel like Mitch Love is in here a lot with Pittsburgh. I do kind of find that very interesting because how much are you actually still squeezing out of that core? Because it does feel like, wasn't the whole reason why like there was that split between Dubas and Mike Sullivan is that Dubas is expecting this to be some lean year. So I guess maybe you can sell a younger coach on that, but also you still have so much money tied up. You have so many guys that are they going along with that rebuild more or less, right? And I don't really think it's going to be a retool in Pittsburgh. It does feel like the Bruins would be the more appealing option there, but I guess everyone has something different, right? I mean, hell, Lane Lambert went to the Seattle Kraken, which, like, again, not what you want to do of take yourself out of the running in a coaching candidacy and hire someone like that who, as soon as Lane Lambert gets hired, everyone's like, but why? But why'd you do that? So,
no, it's true. And it to your point, like it does come back down to, what you view in terms of like what's important to you, right? Because like I think
for Manty brothers,
even at 38, 39, like Sidney Crosby's a hell of a pillar, right, to have on your roster. David Pastrnak is what you have in Boston. You also have Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm and Jeremy Swayman, if you can fix him and get him back to being the goalie he was the first 4 years of his career. Like that's a better option than Pittsburgh, I would agree. But like, what if you really value center play? It's like, okay, well, you're getting really good center play in Pittsburgh, right? So, I think out of the three that were remaining, right, Seattle, Boston, Pittsburgh, I would feel that Boston is the most appealing. That's just like, that's a team that, and I think especially, you look at what Seattle's done, like Seattle's kind of Boston-esque when it comes to like the coaching shelf life. They moved on from Hackstall. They moved on from Bausma. Like, I don't know if you have reservations about Boston because of the shelf life and how they fire coaches, you're not looking at Seattle going, no, that's where I want to go. Like they're kind of the same thing in that regard.
Yeah, no, exactly. And also you look at where the coaching search is and all the candidates. I guess it'd be remiss if we don't talk a little bit about Mako Sturm, just because it does feel like he's the guy that has had the most ties to the Bruins, has had the most reports linking him, whether it's Cam's report from earlier this week. Elliot Friedman more or less said that he was talking to the team on Friday and feels like he's the leader in the clubhouse, at least. I think we both talked about it respectively on our podcast, but where would you stand as we maybe expect, if Mako Sturm is announced as the new head coach? What do you think of that hire and what he'd bring to this team?
Yeah, I do disagree with the notion that like he's part of the old boys club. Sweeney was working in development when Marco Sturm was a player here. Cam Neely was the vice president, and then he became the team president, I believe, Marco's final year with the Bruins. Like it really wasn't, oh wow, he's one of us. It's not like Chris Kelly, right? Or like to another degree, like Adam McQuaid, where like they've been working under these guys for years and years and years. Like, no, he's a bit of an outsider. And the LA Kings, like, I think it's telling that Don Sweeney brought up the LA Kings at his end of season press conference as like a team that, like, you look at them and how they play. It's like, okay, so you're going to take a piece from the LA Kings pipeline, right? Like that is how you're going to do that. And so I think it makes sense in that regard. That's why I feel like if I were betting, right, if I were creating the odds here, and I think we did this last week, like you asked me and we asked each other, like, who would your top three be? I said Leach, Love, and Sturm, because that's kind of like they're all defensive minded in theory. And so it feels like that's where the Bruins are going to want to go. So I don't hate the hire, but I also like the potential hire. It's also not like, I think people look at the German success and the fact that the Reign have been a solid team in the AHL and they go, okay, that's going to be great. Like, no, like there's still some question marks, offensively. Can he get the most out of the players? Like, that's what I'd really wonder about. He's got to tap into younger players. The Reign's roster, I know they had some kind of veteran presences down there as well. So like, I don't have a full scope of that in terms of like, how much was he getting out of development and coaching young players and bringing young players along? Because I do think, I wrote this past week, like they got to get more out of their younger players. Like it's got to be a symbiotic relationship between the next head coach and your young players. I don't care if they're not perfect. They're young players. They're not going to be perfect. But you got to give enough rope to guys like Fraser Minton, Marat Hustadinov, Fabian Lysell. Like, you cannot have another season where you waste a combined 1,000 minutes of hockey on getting something out of Vinny Lettieri, Patrick Brown, Oliver Wahlstrom, Riley Tufte. This is not an anti-role player take. It's a, you got to get more out of younger players take. And you can't give them one game and send them back down to the minors and kill their confidence. It was an issue. I talked to players who did the shuffle back and forth between Boston and Providence, and I had multiple players tell me, I feel like I can't get a look in Boston for whatever reason. Like, you don't want that being your culture down in the minor leagues. And you need a head coach that's going to bring the best out of younger players versus making them question their own game. So that's something that I want to see whoever they hire. That is like almost objective number one for me. I don't know if the players are good enough. You don't know if they're good enough. None of us know because they don't give them enough rope. That cycle's got to break with this next hire.
Yeah, and it almost feels like when you do bring up these younger players based on just what the expectations of the status quo was for years, right? In terms of just how little rope they gave these younger players. I feel like the first 3, 4, 5 games, how much can you really glean from it? Because these guys are like gripping their sticks so tight, right? Because they just don't want to fuck up, like, and it's almost like you saw like with Lysell, it's games 6 through 10 where he's like, all right, I'm in the groove now. I know I'm not going to get bounced out of the lineup. Like, I can play my own game. And he was kind of candid about that. I think he saw it with guys like Minton, right? For everyone, I think looks at, who scored in like their first game. Like Mark McLaughlin scored in his first game. Ryan Donato did, right? So there's those kinds of, there's kind of those immediate bumps you do get, but there's also, I think, some guys, especially maybe more hyped players, that you have so much expectations. And I think Bruins fans are also so starved for young talent that, like, hell, like let's say like Will Zellers is up here in 3 years, and he's not even maybe like the guy that you're building your franchise around, but he's a guy that the Bruins fans are so desperate to see a young player thrive that they're all in on the Will Zellers bandwagon now. That now it's like, all right, like this guy's going to be a 30-goal scorer, right? Like, I don't know. Let's see how he does in college first. Like, it's not. I'm not like knocking Bruins fans for getting carried away because again, there's just so few times where you've seen a player that you're excited about where they're going to be in 3-4 years. Like Fraser Minton, best case scenario is probably like your 3C of the future. And like Bruins fans are thrilled about that, right? And again, if he ends up being a Charlie Coyle for the next 5+ years, there's a lot of value to that. But it also just shows you that the Bruins fans are just so hyped that they have guys they can look forward to bringing into their lineup. But in order to give them that opportunity to thrive, I think whoever the coach is has to be patient with them. And I think the biggest thing for priorities for whoever the new head coach is just that level of communication and trust in these younger players that it's not going to be perfect. They're going to have mistakes, bad games where you want to look at the tape afterwards and be like, what the hell were you doing there? But you got to stick with them because I'd rather that than, an AHL kind of journeyman who maybe gets the job done right now, but where's he going to be in 3-4 years? Probably with another like AHL team, right? Like it's not a knock against those kinds of players. They're important for filling out your depth chart in your organization. But if you're not going to give guys like Lysell or Minton or Patra or whoever else rope, then, how successful is this kind of retool on the fly going to be?
100%. And sort of you look at sort of like the patience that you have to have. If the Bruins had Brad Marchand, rookie Brad Marchand in 2024-25, does his career ever get off the ground? This is a guy who had 1 assist, I think, in 19 games in his like rookie season. And people will tell you, oh no, I saw it back then. No, you didn't. You didn't. I was watching those games too. I was there in the stands. You didn't see it. He produced in his first game and then went like 18 games in a row without a point or whatever it was. Like you didn't see it. He looked like a fill-in kind of player. He looked like a guy that you wouldn't see back in the NHL, but they trusted him. They gave him the rope and he kept going. And so, like how desperate, how thirsty are the Boston Bruins and their fans for someone like in Vegas, Pavel Dorofeyev, where like he breaks in, but you look at him out of the gate, like he had some results, but I think his second season, he went without a goal in like 9 of his final 10 games or something like that. And the goal was a multi-goal game. The game where he got a goal was a multi-goal game, but like it's not linear. They're not like there's gonna be bumps in the road. And so if you gotta know how to manage those bumps, like that is the biggest thing for this next head coach. Like you cannot banish Fraser Minton to the minors because he doesn't play your brand of hockey after 3 games. Like, because you need found money, right? Like look at the way that, it's so maddening, right? Like, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, I understand, but like you think about what they did with Justin Brazeau, right? A guy that you signed to a contract and was basically found money for you, right? And then you trade him for a guy who was the 40th overall pick, like I think Ustinov was 40th overall, 38th overall, something like that. You get that player, right? In return for a guy who was found money. I mean, imagine what you maybe perhaps could have gotten for a guy like Georgi Merkulov if you gave him the minutes you gave Wahlstrom and Tufte and Jones and Tyler Johnson. And it's like you got to utilize your pipeline more, whether it's a pump and dump, whether it's finding guys with a good third line fits, like you got to do more of that. Right. And it's so maddening when you watch a success story of a guy like Brazeau and you go, do that more, please do that more. You can do it. It's a good mechanism. Please go and do that more. So that they got to figure that out this next season, because I also think, and we've talked about this and we'll talk about this more down the road as we get closer, but like you can't rebuild your team from 5th worst in hockey to a playoff team by signing a bunch of 31-year-old free agents. Like, yeah, that might give you a 1-year pop, but you want sustainability, right? That's what Charlie Jacobs has talked about when it comes to why he's not going to fire Cam and Don. Okay, well, if you go out and sign 5 Craig Smiths, all right, you're going to be good for 2 years. And then you're right back where you are right now.
Right, exactly. And it's like, to your point of like maximizing value, doesn't mean you're also keeping every single player. Like, can you imagine if in this last season where nothing was going right, if you had Georgi Merkulov and he didn't, again, light the world on fire, but he had like 28 points in 61 games. You don't think like a team would take that, right? If it's just like, even if it's throwing out there just for some sort of return or something like that, it's not, I think, making the most of these prospects is what drives some people crazy in terms of just, yeah, you finding guys that are part of the equation for your team or moving them on for assets. And to your point, like even Husendinov is a fourth line guy. He's a guy that you hope you can pencil in for the next couple of years, and you got him off of, as your point, found money. So I will also say, yeah, whoever they do end up hiring, I think you're right, where they're all kind of cut from the same cloth of defense first, whether it's Mako Sturm, Mitch Love, all these kinds of guys. And it's for the Bruins getting back to their foundational strengths, right? If they can get their goaltending and defense in line, then it all kind of builds out from there. And it's kind of setting the foundation in place. But I am very curious as to what the approach on offense is going to be. Because if it's Mako Sturm and it's like kind of the Kings system, especially defensively, not the most riveting product on the ice, but I think if that's what you got to do to get your game back in order, okay. But what do you do offensively? Are you a forecheck heavy team? Are you, what's your approach in terms of shot volume? Are you quality over quantity? Are you kind of just peppering the net? How is your approach, I think, offensively with your defensemen? How active you want them to be? And I think for Sturm, it's kind of like, that is the main question. I think, I don't know if you're going to do the 1-3-1 with Sturm here, but I think you're seeing kind of what
91 won't.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not real hockey, according to Nikita Zadorov. But I do think that based on who you've seen linked to the Bruins, it is about getting first their house in order, right, defensively. But how they augment and change its approach defensively, or offensively, rather, is going to be like maybe determining what the ceiling of this team could be. And I think you won't find that out until we get to camp. It's like John Gruden, I think, was a great 1-year stint here as an assistant coach. Didn't expect going into it that these guys are going to be flying around like they were in 22-23. So how they actually practice and preach the principles of what they're doing offensively, I think is going to be the biggest key.
Yeah, I think both you and I were pretty high on the 22-23 Bruins once we saw them in training camp. Yeah. I think once we saw the way that they were utilizing and deploying their defense, you kind of went, oh, this team might be good. I remember I infamously or famously predicted them to win the division, and Felger and Mavs were like losing their minds. I'm like, no, wait till you see this team. They ended up setting a points record. I didn't see that coming, but I saw them being a good team because of what we saw in training camp and how it was like, wow, they're really putting an emphasis on everyone being a puck mover, everyone getting involved. And I think, not to be a broken record here, but you're seeing that with the Cup Final. You're seeing that with Evan Bouchard in the way that he can create. Darnell Nurse is now in a more complementary support kind of role as an offensive producer. And then you have Florida, who, the last 2 off seasons, they've lost Brandon Montour and they've lost Oliver Ekman-Larsson, 2 guys that are pretty decent when it comes to activating and creating offense. No worries. Now Nico Mikkola is going to become, Victor Hedman 2.0 here, activating and jumping to the rush. It's you got to get more out of that grouping, right? And I think for the Bruins, like, you look at the Montgomery system, you look at the Sacco system in terms of like, a lot of time in your own zone, a lot of time unable to get the puck out to get enough from your back end. I crunched the numbers last week. The Bruins had the fewest amount of points from the back end last year. Obviously, no McAvoy, no Lindholm. That's going to affect that. But like, they're just not getting enough out of their back end. And so I feel like that's a way to augment the offense. They said it a year ago. They said it like, we're going to ask more out of Hampus and Mason. Didn't happen that way, right? And so now's a chance at a second crack at it to actually say it and do it. And so that starts with training camp, starts with the head coach, starts with the support staff around that head coach. But that feels like, that in July 1 is going to tell us a lot in terms of like how they plan on getting more offense, right? Like we kind of knew last year on July 1 when they made their signings, we all kind of left that press conference going, okay, so it's going to be goals by committee, apparently. Didn't work out.
2-1. Yeah.
Yeah, didn't work out. And so, again, second chance now for Don Sweeney to kind of right that wrong. But how do they do it? Is it Ehlers? Is it Besser? Is it,
offer sheets?
Is it offer sheets? Is it maybe trading for distressed assets or guys that need to be on the outs, like a Anthony Duclair or a Mason Marchment, who you've brought up in passing before about, like, Dallas has to cut some cap perhaps. Like, could that be a guy you get for cheap? Like, I wonder their method to the madness of how do you fix the offense? How do you do that? And so they're going to have a lot of ways of doing it, but I feel like that's going to be telling. The week of the draft to July 1 is going to tell us a lot in terms of how they envision their offense leading up to training camp.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do think, we're all expecting this team that their focus is going to be getting back as a defense first club, getting Swayman's game in order. Obviously, that's the biggest determinant, but how they alter and augment their offensive approach and get more out of not just whoever they sign, but also the guys they have on this team. Like, I'm sure any coach, I'm not sure, they look at this roster the past year and they're like, oh, I got a ton to work with. But if they see Lori and like I can unlock more out of his game, if it's like Zadorov, who's you've seen him when he's gets a head full of steam, it can be a really dynamic player. Lindholm being back and getting him back to where he was in 22-23 of encouraging him to be a playmaker, which is something that he really wasn't the previous year, right? In 23-24, he was like a defense first guy with Kala, which is he can do, but you're not really maximizing the potential of it in Lindholm when you're trying to just make him a defense only guy. So I think it is trying to figure out what you do in the offseason of adding talent, but kind of the same thing as 22-23. Like, yes, it helped that you had Krejci coming back and like Zaka was a good move, but for most of that year before you then added, guys at the deadline, a lot of it was just depth and the systems being tweaked in a way that was just feel like every person was put in a spot to succeed. And I'm not saying that's all going to happen. I'm not going to say that you're getting a 20-goal season from third line center Fraser Mitten. Woo! Like, that'd be great. But I think tweaking those systems, having it so it complements the players you already have. And if that means that some guys that either were good foot soldiers this year or guys that you wanted more out of, whether that's, Lindholm, whether it's getting, even more out of Geeky, Lori, all these kinds of plays, Andrew Peak, right? Like, there's a lot of guys that if you can tweak some things, maybe you just raise their ceiling a little bit more. If every guy, it's kind of when we were looking at the 22-23 team, and I think we were seeing early on of like, this team could be really good. I think it's when you could see that one, like guys on Taylor Hall were going to be on the third line. And you're like, oh, he's going to feast there. The way they were so active in training camp, and then just, it's all about setting reasonable expectations. Can you get 5% more out of Taylor Hall in a third line role? Can you get 5% more out of Jake DeBrusk, where he's a second line guy and he's going to be playing with Bergeron? Can you get like 5% more out of David Pastrnak, who still was 25 at the time? And I think if you did that all across the roster, it wasn't out of the realm of expectation for all those things to happen. Not saying the same thing is going to happen this year, but I think if you have a fresh voice behind the bench, a new system in place, I think you can have guys that all can rebound from what, for a lot of them, was a pretty miserable year this past year.
Yeah, I mean, even Zadorov, right? Like you watched him in Vancouver, and the way that he was able to generate a lot offensively, like you feel like there's another level there, right? That he can tap into, and maybe it's just as simple as his luck turning a little bit. Like I think he shot like 3% this year, so like maybe he's just getting himself into better shooting situations, better angles, better, whatever. But like you saw it, right? You saw it in Vancouver, both in the regular season and the playoffs. You saw it in spurts, I think a year ago. Like he had one goal where it was just awesome. It was just like it's just absolute hammered shot on goal. I want to say it was against like Detroit, perhaps. I can't remember exactly, but like you saw it, right? In bits and spurts here. And so like you want to just get more of that, right? And obviously Lori, Lindholm, McAvoy, like those are your top dogs. But like if you can get more out of the support guys, like that's what really separated them from the pack in 22-23. Like you had a situation where Matt Grzelcyk, who for the majority of his career was a noticeably worse player away from 73, had a great year without 73. They barely played together for a while that year. And he was getting results. He was getting production. Connor Clifton, Derek Forbert, like everyone was making plays, right? And so that's what you want to get back to, I think, because that's how you know that you have a great team, is that like you are a multi-line threat. You are a multi-pairing threat. And, that is what has made, I think we get so lost in the Better Call Saul, the chicanery of the Florida Panthers, that we lose sight of why they're so good. They're so freaking deep, dude. It's unbelievable how deep they are. And that's what it is versus the Sam Bennett punching goalies and punching captains. Like, no, like it's the depth. It's the pairings 1 through 3 and then lines 1 through 4. They can do it all, man. Like, that's what it is. And they got a great goalie behind them too. And so I think, you just got to get more people involved, right? Fewer passengers. Everyone has the confidence of a driver, and you're off to the races.
Yeah, I feel like when you look at what makes the Panthers so good, and it's very easy to get lost in, to your point, the identity politics, I guess, of what they are, as everyone looks at Tkachuk stirring stuff up, chasing after Aho, which none of his teammates did anything in that series, which rough look for the Carolina Hurricanes for most of that series anyway. But they look at Sam Bennett, but like that team just, when they're locked in, it doesn't matter what the line is or who's out there. It's just they go out and play. Like, and it feels like that's the simple way to put it, but they just go out and they react. Like, it's not even like you even saw with the that sound clip of Paul Maurice a few years ago, where he's just like, go out there and hit someone, like make something happen and just play your game. It's like, they're not, like they've got structure. They're a very, very, very good defensive team, but it's like all off of just them. Every player, it's kind of like the Bill Belichick do your job of just like, they just do one thing, and the chaos that ensues, they react off of it and they capitalize. And that's what good teams do. When you have also just skill and talent from lines 1 through 4 out there, you have guys that are going to bury those chances too, which is also a big part of it. So it's a reason why Florida is now going back to the Stanley Cup Final for the 3rd year in a row, rematch with the Edmonton Oilers. Are you looking forward to that series, Ty? And what are your expectations for this latest Stanley Cup Final?
No, I'm not looking forward to it. I think Florida.
You're not looking forward to reporters complaining about going from Florida to Edmonton on a day-forward trip.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I and the hockey, I don't think is going to be very good. I think it's going to be a Florida sweep. I really do believe that. I believe that Florida is going to win this series 4-0. I go back to what it was a year ago. The Oilers dug themselves a massive hole. I think the Panthers are a better team this year than they were a year ago, and the Oilers have no Zach Hyman. So I look at that and I go, yeah, I don't see it. Like, listen, it's great. They got a goal from Jeff Skinner in Game 5. AJ Greer is going to put Jeff Skinner in a back body drop and take him out of the series. Like, that's like, I just feel like it's not going to be like a good matchup for them. I just think that Florida is far and away the best team in the playoffs. And I honestly feel like, Dallas was the only team that I thought would have a chance to beat them because of their depth and because of their defense and the way that their goaltending can steal games. We didn't see any of that in that 3rd round. Yeah. And so that's out of it. And I think Florida's going to win. I don't think it's going to be a competitive series. I just don't. And listen, I could be totally wrong on that, and there's a good chance I will be, but I do not foresee this being an exciting, good, entertaining series. I just don't see it.
Yeah, beyond the fact that, unfortunately, as talented as some of the Oilers are, they are not the most fun, they're not the most charismatic squad, I would probably say.
So here's my whole thing. I hate tanking. I think it sucks. I do not enjoy it. Everything the Oilers have become is like, I don't want to see that method being rewarded in any fashion. I want them. So there's 2 things about the Oilers that I hate. I hate that they were a tank team and have like a billion 1st-round picks, and everyone goes, oh, they also got Yakupov and Hall, and those guys weren't good. It's like, doesn't matter. They got the generational guy, so it doesn't really matter. Like, if you do that, for a billion years in a row, you're bound to get the generational guy at some point. Secondly, the way they have, and listen, I know Stuart Skinner has been good. The way they have outright ignored goaltending infuriates me. I do not want to see teams get rewarded for sucking their way into generational talents and being like, that position doesn't matter. I hate those 2 things of team building. So I hate the Oilers to my core as a franchise. I'm sorry. Go on.
No, I was going to say, I feel like the Oilers are just like such in a sphere of their own where it's tough to gauge much of them in terms of like, as much as the NHL is a copycat league, how much can you glean from a team that is literally just treading water until 97 and 29 are out there? Like,
yeah, sucks. It's not fun. Like,
yeah, I wish I could build a roster that had also just all league minimum guys, or Evander Kane or some of these players that you can just sprinkle across your depth chart, and like they can pull on the rope when needed. But it's also because you have two guys leading the charge every step of the way. And like I get it, like Bouchard's been great. They've had guys. Hyman was a great fit there, right? Of just being a setup guy. So they've had some smart moves, but to your point, like I don't think that goaltending is like the running back by committee in the NFL, where it's just you put any guy out there. It's like, no, when you got guys like McDavid and Draisaitl out there, it covers a lot of blemishes. It's not just one, like it's not just one or two flaws. Like they are a cheat code out there. It's like I say it's like when you're playing like NHL with like your little cousin, and you're kicking his ass. He's like, wait, and then turns the sliders all the way to easy, and all of a sudden guys are going 80 miles per hour. It's like this isn't hockey, to quote Nikita Zadorov.
Yeah, no.
So yeah,
like, it's just so maddening. Like you look at their roster, and like when 97 and 29 aren't out there, it is borderline unwatchable. It is not a fun brand of hockey to watch. For as much shit as the Hurricanes got for being boring, I think the Oilers are a way more boring product for the 41 minutes that McDavid and Draisaitl are not on the ice. Like that is not a fun thing to watch, in my opinion. So I know they balance them out. They put them on two different lines, whatever. But like, it's just like, it's like what they are. Remember when like the Penguins and like the Blackhawks and even the Lightning had to like sign too many veterans, and like they started to kind of lose in the first round, the second round, whatever. Like this is like that, but like they're still winning. And it's so annoying because of how good those two players at the top are. Like that is so annoying to me because those are teams that should be out in the first round. Instead, they are representing the West in the Stanley Cup Final once again.
Yeah, it almost breaks your brain in terms of like, don't use them as a model. You want to look at the Florida Panthers and how they built their team, and like yes, like follow that. It's almost like I know Kyle Palmieri just signed an extension with back with the Islanders, but didn't he feel like a guy that like if he hit the market, he would sign like a 2-year, $4 million deal with the Oilers and score like 37 goals?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, see, like they're just being smart, picking up these guys. Like, no, he's playing with the best hockey player ever. Like, sorry.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're squeezing something out of Corey Perry, who is 9,000 years old.
I was going to say, Rip Van Winkle in the top 6.
That guy remembers when. Yeah, Corey Perry grew up in the age of Scotland and the Appalachians being in the same area. Like that's when he was around.
Stu was skating on the frozen lakes of Pangea, and now he's still he's still locked in. So,
Early man himself.
Yes, I mean I agree. Again, because the Oilers can just break your brain, I would not be surprised if they win this series off of just what we've seen, right? Mm-hmm. But I still think Florida is just a relentless team. So I won't go 4 games, but I'll go 6. I'll say that it ends up being kind of interesting, but I feel like it's going to be like Florida jumps out pretty early on, and it's just when they play their game, which is almost every single time they're out there, they've got so many guys that can burn you, and you can't play McDavid and Draisaitl for every single minute of those games. They tried to when they were coming back in that series, but I just can't see it happening.
Yeah, I admit I might be blinded by my hate of the Edmonton Oilers. I have to admit that I might be blinded by that hate. So they're probably going to win a game. I just don't think it's going to be as competitive as it perhaps you would want this time of year in the NHL, but that's a different story for another day. As we know, we got absolute slop this playoffs, 3rd year in a row, my opinion, where it got worse as it went on, and the NHL has to make a difficult decision here, in my opinion. Are you content with your first round being your best round every year, or do you want the best on best at the end of the day? I think this is something that the NFL gets right, where the NFL wants it to be 1 versus 2 in the 3rd round. They want it to be best on best. The NHL feels like, no, let's get our ratings in round 1 and then let's hope for the best. Like, that's not a good idea. It's just, and I think the ratings are kind of playing that out. And, like you want to have more eyeballs on your product on the biggest stages versus the opening round. And they got to figure that out. I don't think they will. I think their answer is going to be a play-in tournament, which is going to be stupid as hell. But I'm curious when we get the pushback in terms of the players saying this format is terrible. Let's get a new format, because that's the only way it's going to change, in my opinion. And I'm so pissed about it because when we had the press conference with Don Sweeney, it was the perfect chance for me to ask him as a GM who does talked to the competition committee and all that. Like, I wanted to ask him his thoughts on the playoff format because I can't most years because it comes off as sour grapes. They didn't make it this year. So it'd be the perfect time to ask him, what do you think about the format? Like, do you like it? Do you think it should be tweaked? Like, I don't know what he would have said. He probably would have said, that's a league, but like, I'm curious how GMs feel.
Pat Maroon would have kicked the door in and be like, you guys are raising these fucking narratives.
Yeah. Now we're like, all right, sorry. That remains like one of the funniest things because I just remember being like, yeah, man, I want you to beat him up. I don't like him either. Like, he's a jerk. Like, I'm not creating a narrative. I want you to do it. I know they're afraid of you.
Yes, no, exactly. And I agree, though. When you look at just the playoff format, it's like, why don't you just lean into like the chaos of the first round, knowing that you're going to get at least out of like those various first round series, like 2 or 3 of them are going to be just riveting anyway, off of just the chaos of hockey. Like, there's going to be an upset, whoever you match up with, but it doesn't need to be you getting your big guns knocking each other out, Colorado and Dallas in the first round. Like, shouldn't it be to your point, like, what if it was Toronto and Florida in the Eastern Conference Finals? How much better that would be. Like, probably the 2 best overall teams in the East going up like that, right? If it is the Oilers, but even if it was like Colorado and Dallas in the Western Conference Finals, like, a lot of eyeballs on that series as well. A lot up for grabs. A lot of star power. You got the Rantanen thing. I'd rather talk about Rantanen scoring a hat trick against his former team at the end of May in the conference finals in the first round, where it's kind of like, oh, like, that's a funny little storyline. Here's the 8 other NBA games are going on at the same time. The NHL can't grasp that. The further you go along, the higher the stages, the more eyeballs you get that aren't watching things. Like, I'd rather, they're trying to force Connor McDavid, who is a generational player, but just because like they're at this point in the playoff format where it's like, look at this guy. He's really boring. He's not going to say anything fun, but look at these highlights. It's like, I'd rather you have Austin Matthews or some of these other guys that you're trying to market later in these series. Like, it's why I like Matthew Tkachuk is like the most popular dude in America in the NHL, because he's always playing late. They always doing a lot of like features on him on like ESPN and stuff. And he's a pretty charismatic guy. So you can see why guys like him, Marchand, the further these guys go, it's better to market these players if you're in the NHL. But no, let's get most of these really fun formats, these fun matchups, these fun teams out in the first round, out in April. Give them more time to golf. That makes sense.
Yeah, and the other part of it too is like I was making the joke on Twitter, like we don't have time for blowouts. To your point, in mid-May, in late May, we don't. There's only 2 shows in town. They got to be good games. You can't. You got to be good games. They got to be good competition, good quality competition. You can't give me a first round matchup in May because first round matchups, as we know, are unpredictable. They can be really good or they can be absolute miserable dog shit 5-game series over and done with. We got 2 first round series in the conference finals. Not good enough. The NHL's got to aim better. They got to aim higher. And I know people out there are going to say, luck of the draw. Some years it's going to be like this. Other years it won't be. It's happening too frequently. It's happening too often and I think this is especially true in the Atlantic bracket. The Atlantic bracket has been an absolute gauntlet for about 7 years now, it feels like. You've had probably 3 of the 4 best teams in your conference have been in that Atlantic bracket. It's tough to knock them all out so early, right? And I would say the same thing about the Central. The Central, which has had Dallas, it has Winnipeg, Colorado, St. Louis, Nashville when they were good. Like, you got to just go back to 1 versus 8. Why is this so hard?
Yeah, it's even like, look at this year with Florida, Tampa. And it's like what we've always, I forget who it was it Foligno that was saying like the first round's the toughest round. Like, you can't glean anything from a team in the first round. Everyone's trying to get their footing. Like, that Tampa team, I thought was going to win the East this year. I thought they were so damn good. And like, maybe if you don't have those 2 juggernauts go like this in the first round, they're both playing deep. They're both getting their confidence, and then they meet in the conference finals or what have you. Like, isn't that the better format as opposed to like the first round? Like, oh, look at all these great games. We got Colorado, we got Dallas, we got the Battle of Florida. We got, oh, this is great. Battle of Ontario. It's like, how about we save like the theatrics and the drama when the games actually really matter when it's further on? Like, it's, I don't get it.
have it matter, right? Like, have it happen organically. Like, there was nothing better than when it would be Boston, Montreal in the playoffs in the first round, but it happened organically, right? Like, if you're creating it, if you're manufacturing it, it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, rivalry because of you, not because of the hockey gods. It's because you. Like, I think organic is something that the NHL is allergic to. Like they're like an 8-year-old who just loves Red 40. Like that's like their whole thing.
Yeah.
Like they like you give them a banana, like, nah, I don't want that. Like that's what they feel like.
Yeah.
It's like just eat something good for you. You're gonna feel better.
Exactly. Yeah. I was trying to rationalize and figure out what the NHL is doing. I don't know if that's going to be a fruitful endeavor, I would say. Ty, before we let you go, where can we read your stuff? Where can we hear you on the airwaves? All that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find me at 985sportshub.com. You can also find me on the podcast there, the Sports Hub Underground. New episodes every week. And on social media at _Ty Anderson, most places. Just search my name. You'll find it. That's where I'll be. How about yourself?
Yeah, you can read my stuff over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. We have you covered every step of the way this Bruins offseason, whether it's the head coaching search, free agency, trades, the draft, all that good stuff. We have you covered every step of the way. You can also find me on Twitter, X, or whatever you want to call it, at Conor Ryan _93. Thank you all for listening. This was episode 334 of Poke the Bear. A reminder once again to please subscribe to our Bruins Rinkside YouTube channel as part of the CLNS network. We have you covered every step of the way this Bruins season. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button to get notifications in case any new videos drop. Once again, this was episode 334 of Poke the Bear. You fans have a great rest of your week.